Hello and welcome, friends. My name is Bryson, and I'm the Director of Event Content and Experiences here at MIT Technology Review. I'm here today to give you a rundown of what you can expect over the next 3 days at EmTech Digital, our annual AI event for senior leadership. In the next 10 minutes or so, I want to give you an insider's look at what to expect over the next 3 days. Over the last 3 weeks, I've met with every one of our presenters to discuss their talks and work with them to weave their thoughts into a cohesive story that we think will help you get your AI projects off the ground faster and with fewer issues. So if you recall, when you registered, we asked you what brought you to EmTech Digital. This word cloud represents the most common words you used. You've come here to get caught up on the new AI trends and developments to help implement AI in your organizations. And that's why our conference theme this year is AI, Age of Implementation. AI, Age Implementation. Aren't we clever? And it's a recognition of what you told us when you registered about just how difficult it is to get AI right. And so here's how we're going to try and help you out. Each day, we focus on one theme and provide 3 different perspectives on that theme. Internally, we call these chapters to reflect the fact that all of this has to tie together to convey the story of AI implementation. So Tuesday, we're talking about the business of AI. We'll set the stage by defining the challenges of AI implementation. We'll dive into some case studies of organizations that have done AI right, and we'll get into the details of what it takes to truly deliver value from AI. Wednesday is our day for the engineers. We're talking to all the big players in the industry and finding out what challenges they're working on in their labs and hear about some of their most interesting breakthroughs. We'll also dig into the hardware side of AI to see if we can speed up processing and potentially make AI at the edge a reality. Finally, on Thursday, we'll talk about how AI is impacting our daily lives. We'll start by talking about guardrails for AI and how to control the algorithms that now control us. Then we'll talk about some of AI's more significant advances beyond just Spotify recommendations by looking into AI in agriculture and in transportation. And we'll close with a look at how AI is impacting the workplace, both for better and for worse. So we've lined up 35 speakers over the 3 days, and it would be overwhelming to get into each session. So what I've done is chosen highlight sessions from each chapter that for some reason or another piqued my interest. So call this a director's highlight reel of your next 3 days. Or, well, actually your next 365, if you consider the fact that you have access to the replays of every session for the next year. So let's dive in. On Tuesday, we talk about the business of AI. So the obvious choice for this chapter was to highlight Andrew Ng. As the former chief scientist at Baidu and the founding lead of Google Brain, he led AI transformation at 2 of the world's leading technology companies. But you already knew that, and I figure that's a large part of why you signed up. So my pick here went to Michelle Lee, who leads up Amazon Web Services Solutions Lab. This is where Amazon customers go when they are trying to implement AI. She has a treasure chest of implementation war stories overflowing with do's and don'ts. She was also the advisor to the President of the United States on matters of intellectual property, where, amongst other things, she introduced AI to over 200 governmental agencies. First woman to hold that position, as a matter of fact. In Essential Elements, we'll talk to MasterCard and Google about a couple of AI implementation success stories. The prep call with Ed McLaughlin of MasterCard was energizing. He started off the call by saying, AI is just math, but you call it AI to get it funded. And it only got better from there. MasterCard has done some amazing work with AI and fraud detection, and Ed's going to share some of the cat and mouse antics of how AI was used to detect fraud, but then the fraudsters adapted, necessitating changes to the AI, and it became a never-ending circle. It's fascinating stuff. And finally, in Deliver, we're going to dive into the topic of data. Alex Wang, who runs a company that you can outsource to label your data, will tell you that data is the new code, and your algorithms are only as good as your input data. He makes a convincing case, but not convincing enough for speaker Hamid Tizouche, who says AI's hunger for millions of rows of labeled data is not realistic for many organizations. And if we're truly going to advance the state of AI, we're going to have to do it with less data. So I'm really looking forward to these contrasting takes. And all of this is on the first day. So Wednesday is our engineering day, our geek out day, our techno day. Call it what you want. This is the day all about technical advances in AR hardware and software, or I guess more appropriately, algorithms. We start off with speakers from IBM, Amazon, and OpenAI, taking us into their labs and giving us a peek at what they're working on. Now, I'll admit, when we put this chapter together, I was a little bit worried that it might be a bit repetitive. We're doing this, we're doing that, and that might drone on for a little while. But to my surprise, our three speakers have very different takes on how they're tackling AI challenges. Absolutely all are fantastic, but I think for me, IBM's take took me the most by surprise. IBM really brought AI to the forefront when they took on Jeopardy in 2010, but hasn't been as noticeable since. But in their session, you'll hear how they're heading in a very interesting and altruistic direction with their research. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what's going on in the labs at IBM. In algorithms, the obvious choice was Shuidong Huang, the CTO of Azure AI. There's amazing stuff going on at Microsoft. But I've decided to make Anima Anandkumar my pick, a woman whose parents were both engineers and her grandfather was a mathematician. In her session, she'll talk about how AI is being used to solve partial differential equations. Remember those from your college days? And how that is going to have significant impacts on our ability to model complex systems, such as the quantum chemistry of drug development. It's heavy stuff, but it's amazing. And we'll close the day with chips. We're going to dip into chips, get it? That lets you perform AI at the edge, which on the surface seems impossible given that AI is a power-hungry monster, but that power is not a given at the edge. And while that's cool, what I'm most eager about for you to learn is about photonic chips. Photonic chips use light to send signals, which promises orders of magnitude higher performance and efficiency over our current GPUs. AI power consumption has become a major problem. The AI project that took a robot hand to solve a Rubik's Cube took an estimated 2.8 gigawatts, or the rough equivalent of the power output in 1 hour of not one, not two, but 3 nuclear power plants. So reducing that appetite for power is an absolute necessity, and photonics may be the solution. And that brings us to Thursday, where we're talking about AI's impact on our daily lives. Guardrails is a chapter that stands in contrast to the entire previous day. Whereas Wednesday, we were talking about the hardware and the software, Guardrails is about how we control the algorithms that control us. Tech industry as a whole needs to do better here, and we'll cover many angles on just how to do that. I'm most looking forward to Julia Reinhardt's comments. This is a woman who was involved in the early drafting and negotiations for the European GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. I expect her session to provide a truly frank assessment of the policies we have, the policies we need, and the policies we'll likely get. In life, we'll introduce you to Kyle Vogt, the CEO of Cruise, which is an autonomous vehicle partnership between Honda, GM, and Microsoft. His test cars over the last 5 years have accumulated 2 million miles of driving the challenging streets of San Francisco. And his cars are now driving without human backup. So I'm really looking forward to his vision on the disruption ahead for the transportation industry. Oh, and he's the co-founder of Twitch, which is also kind of cool. And we close the day, when we close the conference, with a look at how AI is impacting our workforce and careers. There's a lot of good ahead, but there's a few things we need to keep an eye on. And Veena Duval, a law professor from UC Hastings, who is focused on the gig economy, has a few warnings for us. Her basic take is that the gig economy is a giant testing experience for the workplace policies of the future. That prep call was an eye-opener for me, and I think it will be for you as well. Okay, I have one last thing before I let you go, and that's the MIT Inside Track. There are 25 to 30-minute breaks between our chapters, and you've got two options. You can do office things like grab a coffee, check email, remove the laundry from the washer or the dryer, or you can sit in one of our MIT Inside Track sessions. The MIT Inside Track sessions are designed to give you that campus feeling. We've invited professors to give master classes or lead discussion groups, and we've invited researchers to showcase interesting projects. Some are live, some are pre-recorded. And for anything pre-recorded, we have the speaker available in the online chat to answer any of your questions. So some of the highlights in the inside track this time are Jesse Thaler. Jesse's trying to teach machines to think like physicists in his quest to see if AI can devise the holy grail of physics, a theory of everything. It's a fascinating talk about teaching AI to understand the structure of problems. Now, for the first time ever, we're introducing discussion groups. These sessions are limited to 25 participants, and they're meant to be interactive conversations with MIT professors. I highly recommend the Thursday 11 a.m. Eastern session, so that's actually an hour before the show gets started, where Roz Picard will be talking about AI for improving mental health. Roz is the co-founder of Affectiva, a company that uses AI to read facial expressions for gaming, for robots, market research. And I promise this will be a very engaging conversation. A quick disclaimer, though, that the discussion groups are available to all access attendees only. And finally, another first for us, we're taking you behind the scenes of what's turning out to be a very explosive story published by our senior AI reporter, Karen Howe, on the battle between ethics and profits around Facebook's newsfeed. It's an incredible read that's caused an incredible reaction on social media. So we'll get Karen to give us an insider's take on the whole story and really the larger issues of socially responsible AI. Don't miss that one. And that's our show. I hope you're now looking forward to it as much as I am. I'd encourage you at this point to go explore our conference website and build up your agenda for the 3 days. Make sure to check out the library where we've posted speaker presentations and other materials that they've made available for you. And fill in your profile. The site offers the ability for attendees to connect with one another. So take advantage of the opportunity to meet some of the people facing the same challenges you are. I'm Bryson, the Director of Event Content and Experiences for MIT Technology Review. And on behalf of the entire MIT Technology Review team, thank you for joining us for this conference, and we hope you enjoy the show.